Welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another edition of our analysis and breakdown of El Corán dos Muslimos, which is Portuguese for the Quran of the Muslims. Oh yes, back once again with another verse-by-verse breakdown of the message of Allah in the words of Allah. And what we're going to do is break each verse down into factual, basic English sentences so we can understand what is Allah up to, what does he intend and plan for us non-believers in the current day, and how does that affect us in our daily lives and in the future. So as I always say, if you have any doubts as to my factual accuracy or any of the things that I'm about to tell you, please feel free to buy one of these Holy Qurans from any good bookshop or off Amazon. And you will find out every single word I'm saying is true of this book and the words of Allah. So, let's carry on where we left off yesterday. And where we left off yesterday was we had just finished hearing about the story of Abraham in the words of Allah. And even though in Genesis this is like a very long drawn out story and a really interesting fact-packed piece of the Torah, no. In Allah's words, Genesis is boiled down to basically like 2 pages, and the point of Genesis is to know Abraham was a Muslim, Abraham's children were a Muslim, Moses, Jesus and all the other prophets are actually Muslims, and so says Allah, and if you don't believe Allah then you are bad and you should be killed. This is a promise made to the first human, and every other human has always believed it up to now and will believe it in the future, and if you don't believe it yourself, you are the problem and you shall be killed. Thus says Allah in the Quran. So, the final thing that he said was these hypocrites and Satans know well that Allah is true, but they conceal it for their trickery is never ending. Which I thought was quite interesting, because what he's suggesting is that Jews, Christians, pagans, idolaters and atheists all will actually believe in the Quran and in Allah, and the only reason they deny this to themselves is because they're stupid and evil and bad and dum-dums and they should die, in the words of Allah. So let's carry on where we left off yesterday. 110. To each is a task which Allah has set to him, and to the goal of fulfilling the goal of fulfilling Allah's genocidal prophecy, all must band together. Failure is intolerable, for Allah is all powerful. So let's break that down. To begin with, this is Allah talking to you now. So we've stopped talking about Abraham, Jesus, guys from the past. We're literally up to the current day. Allah is literally speaking to you now who's reading the Quran. And what he's telling you is this. He sets each person a task from their birth. That is why they're born. Allah gives their life purpose. And the task is for Allah's end-time genocidal prophecy to be fulfilled. And how that is going to happen is all these individuals with Allah's task should all band together. And when they band together, they will complete Allah's genocidal prophecy. And he adds a line at the end to say, failure is intolerable, for Allah is all powerful. So it's almost like a threat. What he's saying there is you and your children and your children's children, until this is done, all need to go and genocide the Jews, then the Christians, then everybody else. That is your task. Not just for you, it's everybody's task, so you should band together with the other Muslims, because remember, if you're not a Muslim, you're trouble, dead, you'll get killed. So you should band together with the other Muslims to complete your life's purpose. It's all about your life. But the task and the purpose of your life is Allah's prophecy. That's what this is saying. Your life has no meaning apart from Allah's prophecy being fulfilled, and if you don't do it, failure is intolerable, for Allah is all powerful and he will crush you dead and send you to hell forever. That's what this means. Whoever you are and whatever be your life, you must fall in submission to Allah and turn to face the sacred mosque, which is in Mecca, you know, the Kaaba that we spoke about in the last video. You must all turn to face the sacred mosque, and this is your truth from thy Lord, who is Allah. So, capping off this verse, Allah makes sure you know this task that he sets you from birth, that everyone else is set, it doesn't matter who you are or whatever you're already doing in your life, whatever you think your purpose in life is, nah, forget that. Your purpose is this. It's not what you think it is or what you want it to be. Your purpose in life is strictly to fulfill Allah's genocidal prophecy, to band together with other Muslims, to fall in submission to Allah, which means just forget anything that you were doing and don't think that your life is yours. You have no free will. You're doing this. You have to turn towards the sacred mosque in Mecca and you must complete this intolerable you must complete Allah's genocidal prophecy, because failure is intolerable, and if you do not, Allah will crush you. And he even says at the end, this is your truth. It doesn't say the truth. It says, and this is your truth from thy Lord, whom is Allah. So what he's effectively saying here is whatever you feel like is the truth, whatever anyone else tells you is the truth, whatever your life discovers for you to be truth, scratch that. This is your truth. Allah is telling you directly here in the Quran from Allah himself. Your task is Allah's genocidal prophecy, reaching Mecca, turning towards Mecca, following his Quran and worshipping him and genociding the Jews and then everyone else. Failure is completely intolerable, and he'll kill you if you don't do it. And the last thing he says, dear ladies, gents and Pikachus, is Allah is not unmindful of what you will do. To cap off the threat. So what he's saying there, Allah is saying, this is your task, off you go, everything else is meaningless, you're not allowed to have your own life, you're not allowed to have your own truth. Allah is giving you your truth, which is the same as all other Muslims, which is described in here. And if you don't do it, you'll die. And don't think that you can run away or hide or get away with not doing it, because Allah is not unmindful of what you will be doing. He's going to be watching you personally to make sure you do his genocidal maniac prophecy. If you don't do it, off with the head, you're dead, hell, burning forever. That's what this says. 111. His decree is that none shall stand against you, except those that are wicked and evil. You must never show them your fear, but only show me, who is Allah in the book. Only show me your fear, so that I may guide your actions and your thoughts, and that you shall carry my favour and approval. So, what does this mean? Let's break it down. His decree, Allah is making a decree here, which means it's written into law. So even though Allah is a God, he's a non-physical being, what he's saying there is his non-physical commands are the law. These are more important than any country law, any religious law, anything else, any laws that you are following in your life or in your country or whatever. His decree from heaven is what he's saying. His decree is law that none shall stand against you, except those who are wicked and evil. So what he's saying is when you're living your purposeful task of his giving to you, he's giving you your task, when you're living your life and completing his task, through reading the Quran, following Allah's commands and worshipping Allah, anyone who gives you any trouble and questions you or doesn't like anything you do or stands against you in any way, he has decreed that it is law that those people are to be wicked and evil. So that means anyone who has any problem with any Muslim, any place in the world ever, if you get in the way of them fulfilling this genocidal murderous prophecy that Allah has forced them into, you will be known as wicked and evil. And as we know from an earlier verse, if you are wicked and evil, that means you're an evildoer. And if you're an evildoer, in the Quran, off with your head, you're dead. That's what this means. And then he says, so that I may guide your actions and thoughts, and you will carry my favour and approval. So what he's saying there is, you're doing this, and you must never show that you're scared of these guys, because you are going to feel, he knows you're a human being, and even though he's commanding you to never be scared, he knows you're a human, and you're going to be terrified when you're running at guys, and you're shouting Allahu Akbar, and you might die, so you are going to be scared. What he's saying here is that his law, that he's written from heaven to you, so it must be followed, is that when you're running towards people and you're going to kill them because he's commanded you to, never show them your fear. So he knows you're going to be scared, but you are commanded not to show your fear. Only fear Allah. That's what this means. He's saying you only show Allah your fear. You're not to be scared of your enemies. You're not to be scared of Jews, Christians, Satans, anyone else. You're not to be scared of death. You're commanded, whenever you're scared, to show your fear only to Allah. And then he ends off by saying he guides your actions and thoughts so that you carry his favour. So he's literally telling you, don't use your free will. I, Allah in the book, will guide your actions and your thoughts. And if not, you won't carry my approval and my favour, and you will end up falling on the wrong side of the rest of the Muslims. So this is literally saying, don't you think about rebellion. If you're thinking about rebellion, fucking don't, because other Muslims will carry off your head and you will burn in hell for eternity and Allah won't give a damn about you. That's what this means. 112. Never forget my commands, for I shall never forget all that ye do. Accept my command as your submission. Be ye grateful at my wisdom. Do not reject my orders. Now, that seems kind of malevolent to me, just as an observer. Once again, far be it from me, Daily Corvid, a random, simple amateur nobody, to be telling Allah, the famous, all-creative Muslim god, how he should have gone about writing his book. But I think if you're trying to inspire loyalty in your troops, that's effectively what he's doing now. He's not treating these guys as simple spiritual worshippers. He's inciting them to a violent war, issuing them orders. He literally calls it orders. And in order to get those guys to follow you with loyalty, you might want to offer them a reward. But no, he doesn't offer them a reward. What he offers them is threats and curses. Never forget my commands, for I shall never forget all that you do. So what he's saying is, always follow my commands. Don't even drop one clanger. Not for one single minute do I want to see you Muslims not following my Quran. Otherwise, I will be watching and I will catch you out. Allah knows. That's the message of this. Accept my command as your submission. So what that means is just do everything I tell you to and do not dare argue. Do every single thing and don't do anything else. And yet be grateful of my wisdom. Do not reject my orders. So we know what that means. If we break that down, this whole verse is Allah saying, right, I have written a law from the heavens which is better than any human law. So whatever else you're doing in your life, whatever country you live in, whatever people you live near, whatever you think or say or they think or say, or whatever you are driven to do by law, none of that matters. All that matters is that you carry my favour and approval and you carry out my orders, me being Allah in the book. And if you don't, you are an evildoer, you will lose your head, you will burn forever, and you will not be glorified in the end times. That's what this is saying. Then he goes on to say, O ye Muslims, await my end days and keep my prayers always, for God is with those who patiently observe prayers. This is weird. This is the first time he's actually called himself God. Unless he's actually referring to God. Because as far as I know, every single mention of Allah in his own book, he's either calling himself all-powerful, the Lord, or Allah. He never calls himself God one time before this. So this is literally the first time the word God appears in a sentence where Allah is addressing himself as that. So either he's actually saying, keep my prayers always because I am God, and people who patiently observe my prayers do well, or he has literally ripped this off straight out of the Torah and forgot to update the word. So he's actually just copied this out of the Torah, and this sentence is in the Torah, for God is with those who patiently observe prayer. So in the Torah, what that means is, don't rush out and kill people in a rage or overreact. Be patient. Slow and steady wins the race. Patiently pray for things and just keep working towards your goal, and eventually you will be granted it. That's what God in the Torah, you know, the God of Israel says in the Torah. But here, that is appended to the end of a big violent verse where Allah is commanding his Muslims on fear of death and eternity of burning in pain. Do exactly what I'm telling you. Read and follow my commands from the Quran. Don't even think about rebellion. Don't even think about any questions or doubts that you may have. Never show your fear, even though I'm telling you to risk life and limb and run at people who you probably don't want to kill. And they're probably going to try and kill you back. Don't show them your fear. You only fear me, Allah, in the Quran. And if you do all those things, you'll carry my favour. And if you follow my orders, you will do well. Whereas if you don't, you will be an intolerable failure and Allah will crush you. That's what this is saying. So we reach our final verse, 113. Them who are slain in observance of my will are the living. And those who do disobey me are to see only death. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So let's think about that. Those who are slain in observance of my will are actually the living, even though we just killed them and they're slain. And those who do disobey me are to see only death. though I shall test you with fear, hunger, pain, and loss, give your tidings only to my faithful. So let's break that down. I feel like that's the end of our verse reading as well, but let's just break that down quickly before we summarise. Them who are slain in observance of my will are the living. So even though he's just said those who are slain, they're dead. They're slain and dead. They're no longer living. They are of the dead. You know, they are expired. He's saying, in observance of his will, you should see dead people as living. So if a body of a Muslim is dead on the floor in a battle, you still have to treat that guy like he's alive. I think that's what he's getting at here. He's saying after you get killed in a battle, you're still going to be treated as if you're alive. So no one's going to take your house or marry your wife or spend your gold. You know, you'll still get the things you should have inherited in life, even after you're dead, because Allah says so. And in addition to that, those who disobey me are to see only death. So that's a straight up admission from Allah that even his own Muslims are at threat of death should they fail to carry out his orders or disobey any of his commands. They will be immediately killed and they will not be treated as living. So really, this is like death cult kind of stuff. People who are dead should be treated as living as long as they follow this, and people who don't follow those who are living should be treated as dead. That's explicitly what this says. And then at the end, to cap off this mental craziness of this verse, though I shall test you with fear, hunger, pain and loss. This is Allah telling his Muslims, I'm going to test you with these things. Allah is saying to his Muslims at the end of this verse, to be a threat to them, I am going to send you fear, hunger, pain and loss. Even though you're going to be hurting and hating it and starving and feeling all this loss and terrified, even so, when you see other Muslims, you don't tell them about any of that. You behave as if you're really motivated and you're not scared and you've got a full belly. You give them your tidings. That's what this means. He's saying, even if you're having a bad day, Muslims, even if you're scared or hungry or you've just lost your legs in a bomb explosion, when you see other Muslims, you tell him how great your life is, or you'll be disobeying me and you will be killed. And that's the end of this reading. So, in conclusion, what we've gone through here is another piece of Allah's military command. This is his orders to his Muslims, and what he is effectively saying now, we've gone through all the spiritual religious stuff about how Allah is great and powerful. This is the stuff that happened in the past to make sure you believe and don't doubt me. We've gone through all that stuff and the prophecies of the Jews dying and Jesus and Moses and everything else. Now Allah is talking to you in the current day, and in no uncertain terms what Allah is saying to you is you must be the ultimate. You're like the universal soldier at this point. You must be the ultimate soldier. Never show fear to your enemies. Never complain about loss, hunger, pain, disease, or fear. You can't show any of these things, especially to another Muslim. If another Muslim says, how are you feeling, brother? And you're feeling terrible. You don't say you're feeling terrible. You say, I'm feeling great. I'm having a great time, even though my legs just got blown off and I'm hungry and I'm about to die and I'm terrified for my life. You're not allowed to say that. And if we add that to the earlier bit about how his commands must be followed and he won't tolerate failure, we know what Allah is getting at here. What Allah is getting at here, ladies, gents and Pikachus, is that he expects absolute subservience and robotic compliance from his Muslims. They are not granted free will. They are not granted freedom of speech. They are not even granted human emotions. They are not allowed to show fear. They are not allowed to express loss. They are not allowed to communicate their pain to their brothers. They have to do exactly what they're told and make out as if this is fantastic and they're loving every moment of it, even when they're hungry and poor and diseased and about to die. Otherwise, off with your head, you're dead. And that's Allah in the Quran, literally saying that. So, that's the end of our video for today. If you don't believe anything I've said, like always, buy and read one of these and you'll figure out that it's 100% true. And that's all I have to say in this video. So we'll go through the next tomorrow. Until then, enjoy yourself, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. This book just gets worse and worse and worse the further into it that you read. But we're not quite to the crescendo. We've got the worst yet still to come. So I'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, God bless, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.